and welcome to episode 6 of Sex with Charlie and Nina. Hope you're all enjoying it so far. How are you doing, Nines?
Yes, I'm good. I'm very excited actually today.
Yes, we have a very exciting guest today, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We've got double Academy Award winner, writer and paranormal psychologist and Spooked Scotland, which is coming out the 27th of May on Discovery, Evelyn Hollow.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing? Is it Evelyn or Evelyn?
Evelyn.
Evelyn. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't really mind. It's right. I think Evelyn's the English pronunciation. Yeah, Evelyn.
Yeah.
Yes, my middle name's Evelyn, and I pronounced it Evelyn. So did just want to check that.
Well, that's ruined that intro. Yeah. Sorry, Evelyn.
That's okay.
I did make a small statement about how good you were doing intros.
I know, great.
And you fucked
it. Yeah, well, we've got Evelyn Hollow. I'm very excited because I've got loads of ghosts. Oh, I'm massive into my ghosts. You're into your ghosts, aren't you?
I'm into my ghosts, yeah.
I assume you are into your ghosts as well.
Yeah, it would be a weird job if I wasn't.
So, Evelyn, how are you doing this morning? Because I've seen quite a few of your posts recently, and you're on day 89 of
a permo. Yeah.
Being what is it? Just like drinking every day and night?
So permo is Scottish slang. It means like permanently on it. So do you know if you go out for a couple of nights in a row, you've got a bunch of nights out in a row, you're on a permo. So it started as that because there was a couple of weeks where we just had loads of events and stuff on continuously, and then it just got really out of hand. And then I thought we'd do 50 and then 50 and retire. And then it just kept going. So this is day 89, trying to set a world record for seshing, apparently.
At what point does it become alcoholism and finish being just a sesh?
Probably when I was about 21, to be honest.
I was going to say, yeah. Me, it was like 16.
Yeah.
8, 9.
I've not got it in me anymore to just carry on. Like I'll have a couple of drinks and then I've got a hangover for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, but I do think if you carry on drinking,
you don't get a hangover.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're just constantly pissed.
Yeah.
That is also, there's definitely a strong hair of the dog attitude in Scotland, where if you're really rough, the best, sometimes you can't always eat, you'll be ill. So the best thing is to just go out and have a pint, or I think for me it's probably specific cocktails, Corpse Reviver number 2s, Disaronno sours, certain cocktails. You'll feel rough and then you'll have one and you'll be like, I'm back, lads, let's get on it.
Yay! Yeah, all the tiredness just kind of goes, doesn't it, when you start? Like for me, it's like tequila shots. If I'm like hanging and feeling tired and I've got to go out the next day, I'm like, get me some tequila.
I think for me, I don't really because I drink the same sort of things. Like I'm a big fan of red wine, and I don't really get hungover on red wine. So for me, that's it. I'm just tired, but I'm tired all the time. I work like 5 jobs, so it's more just tiredness than anything else. But as long as I don't, mix loads of drinks, as long as I stay to drinking the same 1 or 2 things, I'm grand. Like I can just keep going and then get up in the morning and be fine.
So you're feeling okay today then?
Yeah, I'm all right. I got home from work at like, I don't even know, closer to 1 a.m. and then sat down and started working on the notes for this, and drinks, and then went to bed, and I was back up, and I'm okay.
Cool, good, excellent. Right. So what we wanted to talk about was ghost sex, ghost relationships, and some of the research we've been doing. There's also been like speculation of becoming pregnant by ghosts. It's like a whole thing. Do you have a lot of experience in that kind of side of it?
I don't. It is an unusual area of parapsychology. It's weird to say as a parapsychologist, I'm doing an interview for a sex podcast. But I mean, there is crossover because in history of mythology, witchcraft, things like that, sex and magic and sex and the paranormal is a huge area. It's kind of intrinsically linked. You've also got mythological creatures that kind of come into that area, and then you've got spectrophilia, the kind of fetish of sex, or the sexual fetishization of ghosts and spirits. And although it is uncommon, you still see cases of it today. You've still got stories of people marrying or trying to marry ghosts, and you would get cases of people, having to go to a psychologist because they're experiencing what they believe is like sexual related torment to do with spirits or ghosts. So although it is unusual, it's actually quite an interesting area, and some of the history of it dates back thousands of years as well.
Well, it is all very sexy, isn't it? The minute you start like bringing in ghosts and witches and devil worshipping and all of that, it is all very sexy. There's something to be said about it, isn't there? I think.
Yeah, it seems like to me as well that because when I first thought of like ghost sex, I'm thinking this is like against someone's will.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's all very consensual.
Yeah, I think it can be in terms of the mythology when you've got like succubi and incubi creatures. That seems more like it's against someone's will. But then in spectrophilia, it seems more I guess consensual. There's a kind of active desire to have some sort of sexual relation with a spirit, and you've got cases of people trying to marry these ghosts and things like that. And so
do you think that the ghosts are like well up for being married? Because it could be one of those situations where you're like, oh yeah, definitely wants to marry me, and the ghost's like, no, I don't want. I'm not going to be there for this, and you're going to have to pretend I'm there. No one else can see me, so you'll be like, yeah, no, he's all for it.
Yeah, there's a ghost trying to marry for a green card somewhere.
Yeah. So is there much evidence to support it? And do you believe that it's real?
I mean, the thing is, although some of the mythology is ancient, it goes back thousands of years, and it is unusual that in a lot of the cases, a lot of descriptions match. There's kind of two different versions where you have the creatures being described as, sort of gargoyle-like and a scaly, kind of a bestial nature. And then in the later years, you've got them being more personified as human or taking more human form. But it is unusual that lots of the, descriptions and things all match from various different cultures. I mean, these things pop up in lots of different cultures all over the world. So that is really strange. I think, to me, my interpretation of it is that specifically it's more likely linked to sleep paralysis. So you're experiencing sleep paralysis, you're paralyzed, and your brain is kind of mapping the dream state onto the live waking state. So people often describe seeing, figures in their room at the end of their bed, but they also describe a pressure on their chest, like someone sitting on them.
Yeah.
And there's a famous painting of like the demon, and it is a woman lying with a small like gargoyle sitting on her chest. Yeah, and things like that. So that's when that, and also in dreams, people can historically do wake themselves almost from having sexual dreams that can become quite intense. So if you had that and you woke rapidly into sleep paralysis, you would feel like that was happening to you. So that's my interpretation of what it most likely is.
Yeah, well, I've experienced sleep paralysis, and for me, it was very much like I knew that it was a hallucination, that it wasn't real. Even though it felt real, it wasn't like a dream, it was like a hallucination. So I knew it was happening, but I was completely aware of what was going on, and I knew that it wasn't a real like demon like crushing me. But there's people that like actually think it's happening. Yeah. So do you think that there might be a little bit of like, well, one of the stories that I read, this woman was having like a full-on relationship with a ghost, but it never presented itself to her physically, and she couldn't hear it. So, I mean, that sounds like an ideal
an
ideal man
for me. I mean, marry the hell out of that. Can't see him, can't hear him, but still have sex with you.
Do you think there's a bit of like people maybe with some mental health problems?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that in the paranormal, it's difficult because when we're using psychometrics to assess people for mental health conditions, there will be categories of things like paranormal belief, superstitious belief, conspiracy theories. So, for instance, when you're assessing for something like schizophrenia, there'll often be this kind of magical reality belief. But for me, as a younger psychologist, it was hard because some of the questions would be things like, how much do you believe in, just general spirituality, kind of like New Age beliefs? And I'm a pagan. So it's weird for me to look at the assessment for schizophrenia and be like, they're basically just asking if they sort of believe in some of the things that I generally believe in and have done, my religious beliefs. But nobody's asking them, do you believe there's a God? And you say Christian God. And they say yes. And they're going, oh, well, you're schizophrenic. Because if you believe in something so sort of as widespread or is accepted as something like, say, Christianity, that's acceptable. But if somebody believed in the same thing, but say it was like, more kind of folklore traditions like the Green Man, or even really fringe stuff like kind of fairies and werewolves and things like that, everyone's going, oh yeah, that person's definitely mentally ill. And it's really weird to kind of entangle, like, because believing, like being Christian is a paranormal belief. You believe in an unseen creator and God and unseen forces. That is a paranormal belief, but it's really weird that we treat one as being socially acceptable and the other is you being mentally ill.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of hard line there of, if you believe in ghosts, are you mentally ill? And it's really weird because then that stops us as scientists from being able to make assessments, because people don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't want to talk about what they've seen and experienced because they think they're going to get written off as being unhinged, essentially. It's hard.
God.
Yeah. It's a completely valid point.
Yeah.
Completely valid point. There is no difference between believing in God intervening and something else intervening.
No, absolutely not. No.
That's mad, isn't it? Because that never even occurred to me at all, that they were going around asking people whether they believe in the paranormal. And if they're like, yes, they're going, well, this bitch is tripping.
Yeah, you can't be trusted.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. That is mad. That is literally mad. I have I've asked this question quite a few times to other people, and I'm not getting the answer. So I'm hoping that you're going to have an answer for me, Evelyn. Mm-hmm. Why are all the ghosts old? Like, why aren't there any ghosts from like the 90s wearing like a bucket hat and
a Nirvana t-shirt?
Yeah, what's the deal there?
So I think one of my understandings is that I believe that, or I have a working belief that ghosts may be caused by the fact that consciousness is molecular or particle in nature. It's individual particles. And then once you die, it all breaks down into individual particles and kind of decays out. Now, when something decays out, obviously in the universe, it spreads out and out and out and out further. Everything in the universe is sort of recycled. Energy cannot decay. And when it's spread further out and out in the universe, there's a point where everything would no longer be governed by the way that we perceive time. We perceive time as being linear. You move through A to B to C. It can only go forward. It can't go back. But that's simply not true. Time is a flat circle. It's all happening at once. And so you kind of get these collections and loops and resonance and echoes and replays. And time is governed differently. So for us, we're experiencing the past. We're seeing someone from the past, but it's not. That's not how that works. And in the same way that the simplest comparison is that, if we're here and we see a star, the chances are the star isn't there anymore because it takes so long for light to travel. So it's the same way that for us, that's the past, but for them, it's now, or we're seeing something is happening now, but it's not. It's from older before, because there's this kind of disconnection of what is now for us and what is now for them. So I do believe that, and I know that people kind of describe seeing older ghosts more often, things like scullery maids or like old fishermen or things like that from the Victorian era and things like that. But you do get more modern things. But the other kind of working theory is that maybe these things take longer to gather and project. So if you have something that's much older, has it had more time to gather and take form and become corporeal? And are the things you see that are more vague, like sort of, you know, shadowy or outline or form of a person, but you can't see their clothes or anything, is that a newer thing that hasn't built up long enough?
Oh, so in like the future, people won't be seeing like salty Victorian men just like pottering around castles. It will be like some guy from 2001.
It will be somebody. Do you think there'll be like TikTok generation ghosts?
Oh my God, that's the scariest thought.
Can
you imagine? Like, that's horrifying. Can you imagine a ghost appearing and doing like a TikTok dance?
A ghost just sauntered through my kitchen, hit a dab and fucked off.
Yeah, that's got to be the absolute worst, isn't it? Can you imagine? That's terrifying.
Oh God, let's hope it never comes to that. I always think about that in the future, because you just think like these people that are doing stuff like that and like putting all these like weird like dog filters and whatnot, like their grandkids or their great grandkids are going to be like, oh look, this is my nan. Rather than like, because I've got photos of my like granddad and great granddad like in my house, and it's all like really nice old photographs.
Yeah.
And I just think in the future it's going to be like,
oh my God, it's going to be me with my like jugs out pulling like a duck face.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Or MySpace pictures. It's just going to be pictures of me when I was a scene kid with big back-combed hair, leaning forward into the camera with, you know, with striped hair clipping, hair extensions and Christ.
Oh God, were we the same person? It's so weird, isn't it? I was actually trying to explain to someone the other day about MySpace, and I was like, it's before Facebook. And they were like, what do you mean before Facebook? And I was like, yeah, before Facebook, there wasn't really anything. It was MySpace and then nothing before that. The internet was very young.
Yeah, I guess people on MySpace.
God,
yeah. And then before that, I think it was just like forums and stuff, basically.
MSN Messenger. Yeah, I was trying to explain that as well, that you used to interact with people on like chat rooms.
Yeah. And they'd be like ASL.
You mean that? ASL, age, sex, location. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
They're just like, remember when we were all teenagers all getting groomed on MSN chat?
Oh my God, yeah. And like people going like, be right back when they were just going to the toilet. Now I don't text people back for like 3 days and I don't say a word.
Yeah.
But you're like BRBing people when you're just like nipping downstairs.
Oh, it's so fucking weird, isn't it?
It's so crazy. Anyway. So TikTok ghosts, no. It's a no from me. I don't want any of that business.
Well, hopefully we'll be long dead and not have to experience that.
Yeah.
Because I'm quite happy with Victorian ghosts.
I would like to think that I will come back as a ghost.
Yeah, I think you will.
Do you reckon?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'll haunt you?
I'll be haunting with you.
Will you be dead? Oh, okay, you'll be dead too. Oh, okay.
Do you think I'm living on this earth without you?
No. What is the criteria for ghosts, Evelyn? Like, have you got to like be a certain person to come back, or because like I always thought it was like if it's sort of this whole concept of like unfinished business. But I mean, they've been dotting around for long enough. Like if you haven't finished all the things on your list by now, then
is it like, what's the somebody had said, why are all vampires in the literature like really like wealthy and things like that? And it's like, bro, if you've been here for 1,000 years and you're still poor, just walk into the sun.
Oh God, can you imagine coming back as a poor vampire?
A poor vampire, yeah.
No way. If you're not like living your absolute best life as a vampire.
Yeah. Well, that's the point, I think. That you just wouldn't, would you?
Just like going up the ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'd come in as a vampire, like a new vampire, and be like, okay, right, money.
Yeah. But then obviously I know I'm going to say, I know Buffy isn't real life as we're talking about vampires. But like they weren't living their best life, I don't think. They were just sort of like knocking around in like a basement.
Yeah, but these are vampires that didn't have penises.
Yeah.
They couldn't have sex. That's what
I mean, that's a walk into the sun moment if I ever heard it.
Yeah.
If you're not rich and you haven't got a dick, get out of there, mate. It's not worth it.
Yes, obviously I can't wait to everyone else is like, oh, I want to be reincarnated as like an eagle. I want to be reincarnated as like a great painter. And I'm like, just once I'd like to be reincarnated as a guy so that I don't have to spend 3 hours getting ready. And I can just leave the house and go for a walk at night and not fear for my life. And don't have to work twice as hard for half as much. Everything.
The absolute luxury of coming back as like a straight white cis male.
Yeah.
You imagine.
I'd like to just be reincarnated as a neurotypical person, actually.
Yeah. We're not asking for much.
No. The bare minimum.
Yeah, I want to know what that's like to experience that level of privilege.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice.
I mean, we do walk around like we're straight white men, don't we? We've started this whole straight white man movement and we're really going places. Now we treat people with the disdain that a straight white man treats everyone else.
Yeah.
It's mad how it works.
It is mad how it works. It's just all in the attitude.
I love it when we do it, it's either being aggressive or difficult or you're being a bitch. And then like when they do that, like, oh, they're really like proper like Don Draper, really in control, really like powerful, really assertive. They really know what they want. And then when I do it, they're like, oh yeah, she's an absolute dragon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're all like, what a cool guy. But the minute a woman does it, they're like, she is off her fucking head. She's unruly.
Yeah. Well, when you stand up for yourself as a woman, you're just like hysterical, aren't you? But when a man stands up for himself, he's like full of integrity.
Yeah.
And you just think, go fuck yourself, all of you. Fuck off.
Fuck off, yeah.
Do you think women ghosts are going around having sex with men?
Well, that's the thing. So in the mythology, you've got two kind of creatures. So you've got succubus and incubus. And incubus is from the Latin, which means to lie upon, and succubus comes from the Latin meaning to lie beneath. And they're binaries of the same creature. So an incubus is the male form and a succubus is the female form. But these actual titles didn't apply until much later into medieval times. But the actual mythos dates as far back as 2400 BC. Oh. And one of the earliest mentions actually comes from Mesopotamia, which was on the Sumerian king list, in which the hero Gilgamesh, his father is listed as Lilu, and it was said that Lilu is something that disturbs and seduces women in their sleep. And there's a counterpart called Lilitu, which is a female demon who appears to men kind of in their erotic dreams. But originally these were actually storm demons, and then because of a mistake in the etymology, they've become known as kind of night demons. But the idea is that the female version, the female version comes to men, kind of seduces them in their sleep, and whether consensually or non-consensually, has intercourse with them, retrieves semen from the body. It then transforms into the male form and then does the same thing to a sleeping female and can impregnate them. And then they give birth to this sort of half-human offspring, which is known as a cambion. And this, this is even in like the legend of Merlin and things like that. It pops up all over different culture. And King James, in his account, Demonology, he believed that it was basically the devil trying to, create new demons. But in order to do this, the devil would have to collect sperm from a corpse and transport it to a female, but it wouldn't always work because, sperm would cool and it wouldn't take effect. So you had these creatures that they were like non-binary demons or gender fluid demons, I guess, that could transform from male to female in order to carry on creating more demons. And it's really bizarre because these things pop up in loads and loads of different culture, not just in Christianity. That was later. You've got in German folklore, you've got the Alp of Teutonic. In Zanzibar, you've got Popobawa. In the Chiloa province of Chile, you've got the Trauco. Even in Hungary, it's like every single culture over the world going back thousands of years have got this mythology of some sort of creature, usually gargoyle sort of like creature appearing to a man while sleeping, as a female form, seducing them, having sex with them in order to take something from them. And then for women, it's the same, and they're attempting to pregnate them. And even in nunneries, if a nun was found pregnant, there was this belief that they'd been attacked by a demon, and they'd be burned to death for it and stuff. It's absolutely crazy.
I mean, it sounds like the patriarchy again are trying to. I didn't fuck her. What happened was.
She's a witch.
She's a witch. Yeah. A demon came in whilst I was innocently sleeping. It stole my sperm and transported it and got her pregnant. I had nothing to do with it. I was asleep the entire time.
I find that throughout history, it's kind of like, do you know, in Scooby-Doo when they take the mask off and it was like the fisherman all along. I keep finding every single time that we've got a problem with something or something bizarre happens, we take the mask off and it was like, it was men all along.
Yeah. And they would have gotten away with it if it wasn't the pesky meddling kids.
Yeah. Oh no.
But you see it on the flip side as well, don't you? It's quite common in mythology for like gods to have sex with human women and have demigods. So that's like more acceptable, isn't it? Than like the devil coming in and having sex with a human and getting them pregnant. No one really talks about that, do they? There's no like demi-devils.
No. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose you should just be grateful. Shouldn't we? You should just be grateful. I've chosen you to have a demigod and not a half demon, half human.
But then gods were pretty, if you go into like Greek and Roman history of their gods, they're pretty devilish.
Yeah, but at least they've got the decency to be hot.
I guess in Christianity, you've kind of got it on both sides, because in the Bible, you know, Mary gets pregnant by Immaculate Conception and then gives birth to Jesus. And then the counterpoint is that in one of the supposed, you know, kind of books of hell, the devil is able to do the same thing. Although, so Lucifer and the devil and Beelzebub and things like that are actually all separate things. They're not all one person. But for the reigner of hell, if you like, for Lucifer to be able to do the same thing, to be able to give forth a son on earth the same way that God does with Jesus, he also would have to, you know, Immaculate Conception, basically somehow impregnate a female, and then she would have to carry it to term and then give birth to Mammon, the son of the devil. So you've kind of got it on both sides, that they're both doing it. But I do find it unusual in the mythology that if gods are so immensely powerful that they can create all life on earth, they can just sort of spring things into being, mold things from clay. But when they need to give forth a child or whatever, they suddenly have to pick some poor random woman and, you know, impregnate her or just zap a child into her, and then she has to carry it to term and give it. And I'm like, you're able to create, you know, thunder, chaos, and demons from absolute nothing, like magic, essentially. But when you need to do a child, a woman has to do it. So you're telling me that women are still more powerful than you? Because that's what I'm hearing when I think of that. Because
you're going to get us cancelled, Evelyn.
Because there's still more. We're still required in order to be the creator of life, you know, in order to carry it forward. So even God and the devil requires a woman in order to carry themselves on. So therefore, women are still more powerful than devil and God put together, because that's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing.
There's lots of plot holes, isn't there? I think in like Catholicism, but it is just men, isn't it? It is just
yeah. When it suits them, I mean, you can spring up two human beings, Adam and Eve, no problem. But when you come in to create a child, you can't just like click your fingers and dot a little kid there and be like, yeah, you.
Yeah. And if you do get pregnant, then you're a witch.
Yeah.
But our whole religion is based on Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean...
You can't have it both ways, can you? You can't have your cake and eat it.
They can, and they do.
Yeah. And they will continue to, actually. So...
And we're hysterical.
Well, and we're the hysterical ones.
Yes. Okay. Right. So... have you got anything else to add?
I've got so many questions, but we will, for the sake of the podcast, we'll press on. And then I will incessantly message Evelyn from here on in asking her all my ghost questions.
Yeah, she's going to block us the moment. The moment we end this call.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the confession segment of the podcast, which is about you and your love life, sex life. Because we all want to feel normal, don't we? We all have these hilarious, weird things happen, and we need to normalize that. Sex isn't always sexy.
No.
Okay, so question 1 is, what is the worst sex you've ever had?
So what I found throughout the years is that my job would be so much easier as a psychologist in general if people just talked to each other. And I find that especially I think as women, where you're kind of ingrained not to talk about sex, especially I think for everybody, but especially women, you're not supposed to talk about it. A lot of the problems that women face sexually are that they just don't ask for what they want and they just don't talk to each other. And so when things don't go as they're supposed to, you're like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And it takes until we all talk to each other to work out that actually everyone's having the same, horrific experiences sometimes, and it's fairly normal. So I think for me, without hurting anybody's feelings.
You haven't got to name any names. And if it rings true with them, well, that's a them problem, isn't it?
That's a problem, yeah.
Everyone's like, can't believe you said that on the podcast. And I just think, how do you know it was about you if you weren't acting like an absolute fool?
I think for me, it's probably just where I have gotten together with somebody who I'm just actually not compatible with, and you kind of force yourself to like them. I spent a lot of my years, even up until because sexuality is fluid, and so you're constantly just learning about yourself. But I spent most of my life growing up thinking that I was physically damaged because I just could not get into sex at all. I don't really experience sexual attraction. I could kind of happily leave or take it. I wasn't that into it at all. And so I went through most of my life my adult life believing I was asexual. And so that made relationships really quite difficult. And, sex wasn't something somebody did with me. It was something that was done to me, kind of honest, or on me. It was really hard. And there would be loads of times where I'd be like, yeah, but I really like this person and they are objectively attractive. And then you would try to have sex with them and be like, this is like fucking a table. Yeah. There's no... there's no connection or anything like that. And it has taken me, and then when I kind of hit my mid-20s, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's just specific people. I've always fancied women more than men. So I just thought maybe women I was only attracted to, and even though I really like men, maybe I'm just not sexually attracted to them. And then it took me until like the later half of my 20s, even in the last year or so, to go, okay, well, I'm probably demisexual in that I require a really strong personal, spiritual, whatever emotional connection to a person in order to feel attracted to them. And it just turns out that for the last however many years of my adult life, say 10 years, I'm 28. So the last 10 years of my life, I've just been dating people I don't fancy. and I've literally just discovered that in the last year. I've just been dating people that I got on with really well and I thought were class and I really liked them as a person, but I literally just didn't fancy them. And I just kept trying to jam a square peg into a round hole and make myself fancy them. And so I'm kind of 28 and just now going, so that's a thing. But yeah, definitely I think all of the worst experiences I have is just trying to make myself fancy men I just didn't fancy. And it's a classic age-old thing of they're like, this is really good, and I'm looking at the wall over the back of their head being like, what am I going to make for dinner tomorrow?
Yeah, I completely relate to that actually.
Yeah, I was going to say you've said similar things to me, haven't you?
Yeah, it really I don't know, for a long time I did feel like that. If I never had sex again, it really wouldn't bother me. And I did kind of put it on myself and thinking, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
If you don't feel the same way as everyone else does about sex. But I don't think it's like, I've kind of just accepted it, and I don't think that it's actually a massive deal. And it turns out that I do actually like having sex with people that I like having sex with. So
yeah.
Yeah. So it's everyone else's problem. It's not a me problem, it's a them problem.
I think the other big issue is that with women in particular, like, people are raised to literally believe that, you know, because some of their first interactions with sex will be on television or whatever. And so they assume that female male heterosexual intercourse is the definition of what sex is, and that that's what sex should be, and that's how you should get pleasure, and that's how you should climax. And it's really damaging that the vast majority of women on the planet do not climax from intercourse. And that I mean, that fucked me up for years, because I would even like talk to other women and they would be like, no, I just do this. And I'm like, that doesn't do anything. And I was literally thinking, like, do I have nerve damage somewhere? I don't, you know, because we're raised to think that but that's not, to me, that is very much male orientated sex. And that is sex from a male lens. And then that's what you see on television, and you grow up, and then porn and things like that. You think, oh yeah, that's what sex is. And it takes until you actually talk to, I think, other women or read into things from the female perspective or female gaze to go, okay, so that's not what sex is. That's sex from a male, very much male. It can be, but that's what sex is from a male perspective, and that it isn't always that, and that the vast majority of women actually don't climax from just that. Yeah.
And I think you're right about the whole communication thing. People don't communicate about sex within partnerships or with other people. And it didn't click for a long time for me that I didn't have to pretend that I liked it. And when I pretend that I liked something, that's what you get. If you say you like fucking chicken and chips, then you eat chicken and chips for the rest of your fucking days, because people go, you love chicken and chips.
Yeah, it's like if you tell somebody you like something once and then they buy you that every year for your birthday because they think that that's what you like.
Yes.
It's where we're unfortunately, you know, conditioned to take up less space and to not ask for things, and to just, you know, endure and take it and endure it, and then tell yourself that you like it. And so when you do that, we're actively positively reinforcing partners to do things that we don't like, because we just need to stop them and be like, actually, I'm not into this. Could we do something else?
You can't even blame them for like pulling out the same stops because like you faked an orgasm, and so now they think that you really love it. It's like you with owls, isn't it? Like, she mentioned once that she liked owls and now she's got a fucking entire house full of owls.
Yeah, well, I didn't even say I like owls. Someone just went, oh, do you want, like, I'm going to get you this top. One's got like an owl on it, and one's got like a mermaid on it. What one do you want?
Yeah.
And I was just like, the owls. And then after that, it was just fucking owls.
Yeah.
Owl City. All I was getting was fucking owl merchandise.
Yeah. And it's great because there's owls everywhere. Like, you don't realise how much owl paraphernalia there is out there until you know someone who's obsessed with owls.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So moving swiftly on from owls, what is your most embarrassing sex moment?
So the first one that jumped to mind when I saw these questions come through is probably, right, there was a time in, I think, how old would I have been? About 19, maybe 20. I got together with an actor from a television show that will go unnamed.
You can tell us after so we can have a little gossip about it.
Fortunately, it wasn't my first rodeo of dating a famous person, but that's a different story entirely. And so I got together with this person from an American television show that shall remain unnamed, and so I go back to the hotel room. You know, I know the script, and we're chatting away, and then he goes to me, "Oh, I just need to quickly like FaceTime home, if you don't mind." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," because it's, you know, American time, UK time, whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, just jump on." He was like, "I just like for 2 minutes." So I go to the bathroom and I come back out, and he's like kind of, you know, sitting on the futon thing or whatever at the end of the bed. He's got his iPad on the desk, and I'm sort of, you know, just going to stand back at the shop, assuming he just needs to FaceTime someone to chat to him for 2 minutes. And he's like, yeah, do you want to sit down? And I'm like, okay, sure. So I sit next to him and he's like, yeah, so I just need to quickly FaceTime my wife to let him know that, just before I go to bed and stuff. And I freeze because I'm like, you're fucking what, mate? Your wife? I'm like, what am I supposed to pretend I am? The maid? So we're sitting there.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck? And so, right, the call is already ringing. There's nowhere to hide. So I'm sitting there, a drink in my hand. His wife comes on, his wife and 3 children, one of which is probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7. The other one's maybe a couple years old. And the one on her lap is like 1. Do you know what I mean? Like a baby. And they're sitting on the couch and then, they're just like, it's the middle of the day there. I think it's back in California or something. And they just start chatting. And he just goes, oh yeah, and this is Evelyn. And I'm like, hi. And she just completely ignores me as if I'm not there, obviously does not make eye contact, continues to talk to him. They chat for a couple of minutes about this and that and day-to-day stuff. And then she just goes, yeah, FaceTime me again when she's gone. And then he goes, yeah, okay, well, and then clicks off the call. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? So he goes, oh yeah, we have an open relationship. And I'm like, okay, respect that, because so did I at the time. And I was like, yeah, fine. And he was like, yeah, and he did the most douchebag thing. He goes, oh yeah, I'm an actor, so she understands that like I have needs and shit. And like as a 19-year-old, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds legit. As an adult, I'm like, what a fucking dickhead. So their agreement was that if he was on the road traveling for stuff or whatever, he could hook up with people. But the condition was that he had to FaceTime her every night. And then he'd have to call back once the person was gone to make sure they didn't stay over, obviously. But I did not know any of this.
Why didn't he just tell you? Like,
yeah, like if
give
he'd
you
said
the
to me,
choice, because you could have just been like, that's cool.
Yeah,
or,
like,
no, thank you.
It was just the fact, I was 19, she didn't even make eye contact with me. And then obviously she was like, yeah, just FaceTime me when she's gone. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? I'm like, I'm like an hour taxi ride away from the hotel that I'm staying in, right? So I'm like, let's just do this. So we do it. It's terrible. It's exactly as terrible and one-dimensional as you'd imagine it to be. It's over in about 15 minutes. And then I make some joke about, because he'd paid for my cab to get there because it was going to be really expensive. So he was like, listen, I'll pay for your cab, like if you want to come over. And he was like, oh yeah, I'll sort the cab going back, like don't worry about it and stuff. And I made some joke about something and he just slow turned to me and went, wait, are you like, and I was like, am I like what? I don't know what he's about to ask me. And he goes, are you like for sale? And I was like, no, did you just ask me if I was a prostitute? Like, I think his panic was that he'd hooked up with me and then I'd made some joke about the cab being, it was really expensive. It was like a £120 cab each way. I'd made some joke about it. And he suddenly clicked, oh no, is she going to like invoice me? I was like, God, what the fuck is going on? So I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. So I got back in the cab and go back to like my hotel room thing. And my assistant at the time, Alex, was like, he asked me about it. We were staying in the hotel and I was just like, oh God, this is horrific. But everybody else, like the handful of people I was with was obviously buzzed because they were like big fans of the television show and they wanted all the gossip. And I was like, I don't know how to tell you that this was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had. And he followed me on Twitter for ages and would sometimes talk to me and I would just patch him. And then when the whole like Me Too movement came out, I noticed that he surreptitiously just started following me because I wonder if he thought he was going to get called out because he was definitely in his like late 30s and I was 19 and he had me FaceTime his fucking wife.
I mean, that is fucking outrageous. That is like, at least give you the choice. Like, go, look, this is what I've got to do if you want to have sex with me.
Yeah, he quite clearly doesn't have any respect for women. As
she was probably fucking relieved he was fucking someone else.
I hope she was. I hope that when she put the kids to bed, I hope she was somewhere getting absolutely railed by the gardener because that guy was a dickhead.
Oh yeah, God.
Oh my God,
that is so awful. Like, it's kind of like, well, it's not really kind of like that magician that I was like dating.
Dated a magician.
Yeah. I know everyone laughs at that. And I just think like...
No, I love magic, but I feel like that's the intro to, I just know it's going to be a really good story, whatever it is.
Well, yes. I mean, the greatest trick he ever pulled was pretending he didn't have a wife and children.
Fucking hell, mate.
Yes. So he was real. He was a real illusionist and a cunt. So
I hope he's got business cards somewhere that say like, Mr. Tom so-and-so, magician and professional cunt.
Yeah, professional cunt. And he pulls them out of his sleeve like, yeah. But he used to like take calls from her, but then act like she was this fucking hysterical woman. But she was actually just like, you haven't been home in 3 days. Your kids are asking where you are. Your tea's on the table. And he's going, oh, she's always like this.
Oh, my crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, but she wasn't his ex. She was just his wife being like, oh, are you alive?
Yeah. God.
That's mental, isn't it? Why are they like this?
Why are they like? Well, this guy, obviously, his ego is
he was
so
an
fucking
actor.
massive.
He was an actor, so you know how it is for actors.
Yeah,
fucking that bad.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have said no anyway.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have even given you the option because, come on.
Yeah.
Who are you?
The audacity of him.
Fucking men.
The theme of this podcast is just fucking men, right?
I know, yeah. It's supposed to be carefree, sexy and fun. And actually all the time we're just like, fucking, even the ghosts. Even the ghosts are guilty of it.
Even the dead ones. Even the dead
ones. At least they had the decency to be dead.
Yeah, if they had the courtesy to just be fucking dead.
Yeah. But you didn't have to look at them or speak to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Relentless, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't get over that guy. Right. What is the sexiest song? Or your sexiest song?
The first thing that jumped into my head is actually super cliche. It was probably Closer by 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That jumped right in. I was trying to think of more contemporary stuff, and my brain probably goes to things like a lot of stuff by The Weeknd. Even like You Right by Doja Cat featuring The Weeknd, Starboy, that sort of stuff. I saw someone the other day on, I think Twitter, said that Smooth by Santana was the sexiest. I was trying to, I think is, I talked about this recently with someone else where they were, how some people have like sex playlists. And funnily enough, that guy that we just talked about with a wife did, and it was just all Depeche Mode, and it just screamed swingers playlist. And I don't have that. I don't think I could have sex with music on accidentally. Something's on the background, whatever. But I don't think I could actively go through and make a playlist for that and then go in and hit play. My ADHD brain would be too busy listening to the track or wanting to skip it to be able to focus on what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I have a sex playlist.
Does it help?
Well, no one wants to have sex with me, so I'll let you know when it happens. But my sex playlist is actually called Starving, which everyone found really funny. And I didn't realise how tragic it was until I announced this to our listeners.
What's on it? What sort of stuff's on your playlist?
A real weird mix. Maybe the sex playlist is the reason why I'm not getting more offers. Because I can't even think. I'll have a little pick up and see. But
I just had like a vision of someone trying to give head whilst the cha-cha slide was on.
Yes, well, actually,
I'm gonna have nightmares for the rest of my life.
we were talking the other day. We were doing another interview, and I said that I was having sex once with this guy who had a sex playlist. It was all very gothy and like sexy and whatever. And then the Fraggle Rock theme tune came on.
What the fuck?
I know. And we didn't stop. So that was really awkward. And now I'm scarred for life.
Oh, I'm actually another one just popped into my head. Revelations 22 to 20 by Pucifer is quite possibly the sexiest song of all time. There's also a lot of stuff that's on the Queen of the Damned soundtrack that would qualify. Yeah.
Vampire
music.
Is the one.
100. Well, I'll give you a little this is one that's on the list, and it's Never Be the Same by Camila Cabello. I just think like, why am I playing that whilst having sex with someone?
Yeah, that's quite depressing.
I know. I'm the problem.
You're the toxic one.
I'm the toxic one. Oh my God.
Are we the baddies?
Oh, mate. It's no wonder. It's no wonder.
Well, maybe you need to reinvent starving.
Yeah.
And create a new playlist.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Well, maybe it's mine. I'm putting up the blocks. Universe ain't delivering dick to me because of that.
Mm.
Okay, well, I'll put that on the list of things to do today. Yeah,
very, very negative.
Right.
Okay, so Evelyn, what have you done that has made you feel like the kinkiest person ever?
That's one of those ones where my instinctual response is I'll tell you when you're older. I mean, the thing for me is that lots of people think that kink is like, kind of basic and summer things. There's definitely levels to that stuff. But in Edinburgh, there's a huge kind of alternative community. So there's a lot of overlap just between like everyday clubbing and BDSM. So we have, Torture Garden, which you guys will have down there as well in London. It's based in London. And that was all things I'd been going to for years, not to participate in anything particularly sexual, but just to, even for like the theatre and the music and costuming and things like that. And I think also as a psychologist and someone who spent most of their life believing that, sex was not for them, I just found it really interesting to go and be part of a community where I get to kind of talk to other people really openly about different things on the sexual spectrum, because everyone's quite aggressively open, and to get to sort of look at and view different things and aspects of people's interests in sexuality, and then try to find where I fit into that. So I spent a lot of time in BDSM communities, whether it was just, observing or talking to people, just kind of, studying it and wanting to know more. But, I think I just remember this the other day. I was moving house recently and I came across a box, and in it was a wooden paddle that was engraved with an old nickname of mine, which was Velvet. And it was made by a dominatrix from the States who used to come to this bar and drink. He was friends with me and a bunch of other people. And she was in like her 50s or her 60s. She owned this house that had literally been converted into like a 3-story dungeon, basically. She was a professional dominatrix. She was really interesting. And she made my friend and I paddles, wooden paddles, and they had like our nicknames engraved on them. And I road tested mine once on like one of her friends, and when we were like, well, how hard can you hit someone with this? And I hit them so hard I broke it, because I have no chill apparently. And I still have it. And I opened this, and the other thing was that she brought me that's the other weird thing, is that she didn't necessarily bring me it herself. She had a client who was a pilot who was deaf, who was flying to Scotland on a trip, and she gave him the stuff to bring over, and then he met me and my friend somewhere and was like, oh, this is a gift from Mistress, whatever her name was, from her. And in the box was also a pair of her stilettos that were very old, like proper vintage, like 70s stilettos that she used to wear when she first started out as a dominatrix. So I was moving house and I was like, what the hell is in this shoebox? Opened it, and it was this stilettos and vintage stilettos from the 70s owned by an elder dominatrix from the States, and the broken wooden paddle that says Velvet in it. And I was like, oh yeah, that was a weird time in my life. I just closed the box.
That is like, I can imagine that feeling like very like kinky, just being like, oh, how exciting I am that I've got a box full of all these like sexy bits.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though, that you hit someone with a paddle and broke the paddle.
Yeah, I have. It's always one of those things when people are like, oh, really into pain or whatever, and I'm like, oh, be careful what you ask for, because I used to play American football, so I'm like, I might just full blown punch someone and be like, you like that? You into that?
Oh my god, yeah, it's like, where do you draw the line? Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, I love a bit of like spanking. They don't mean beat the absolute living shit out of them.
Yeah, I'm like, that's GBH, Evelyn. Christ.
Yeah, don't tell the BDSM community. You'll get so many phone calls.
Yeah,
begging to be hit.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's not for me. That it makes me be like, oh, don't hurt me.
Yeah, I think there's definitely spectrums of that where I kind of, as an observer in that community, there's definitely extremes of there's people who can endure, whose pain thresholds are just incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're able to sexually connect without it, whatever it does in the brain or physically. It's just really interesting as a psychologist. And then there's people on the other end who, for them, like, are the complete opposite. The smallest amount of interaction or pain or whatever else, they completely kind of shut off into themselves. So it kind of ranges from people really requiring the most basic functional sex right the way into people requiring really extreme scenarios and dressing up in psychology and theatre and everything for sex. But the whole range of BDSM is just really interesting. And I think it's really interesting for like neuroscientists to actually study what's happening in the brain when that's happening, because it tells us so much about pleasure and pain and personality and the psychology of a person.
Yeah. Do you think that you like attract a certain type of person because your look is very like alternative? Do you, and obviously your profession is very alternative, do you get like attention from a lot of people that just think you're like some weird ghost girl?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of attention from being somebody who is, yeah, I mean, not just from the alternative community. So there's this kind of fetishization of kind of pin-up style women. I have a kind of blended aesthetic of two things, which is sort of 1940s noir, sort of femme fatale cinema, silver screen cinema style, and also kind of like vampire, basically. And so there's this kind of, you know, kind of dark noir is probably my core aesthetic. And there's definitely a fetishization of that old style Hollywood kind of pinup. And you get a lot of men who think that that is the pinnacle of what women should be. You know, they should be built like that. Their hair should be like that. They should be hyper feminine. But then also the kind of people who fetishize, you know, alternative women or kind of goth women, definitely. And then there's a third category of men who just really fetishize women who are really like kind of aggressive and bold. And, you know, I find that actually what they're fetishizing is seeing us as being more masculine. So they want me to look hyper feminine, but my personality to be hyper masculine, as in that I behave in ways that men are expected to behave, like being aggressive and driven and assertive, and I take up a lot of space in a room, and I'm fairly aggressive and, you know, will call people out and do things. And so they fetishize that, you know, because they want to be dominated, but they also want me to be aggressively feminine at the same time. And you do get, I mean, my message requests on inbox on Instagram is a fucking shambles.
I can imagine.
And that started all the way back from even when I had Tumblr. But, you know, men do the most bizarre things. Like if I cut my hair, I would grow my hair all the way down to my waist, get pissed off with it, cut it back to shoulder length, and I would get like death threats because men are really obsessed with me being hyper feminine. And every single time I do anything, like even cut my hair slightly, they go bananas. And you also find there's the opposite, where men will seek to invalidate you because of the way that you look. So as a scientist, when I was touring, like on Battersea Poltergeist Live, you know, people like journalists would be writing reviews and they would just be talking about how salacious basically I looked. They would be talking about how low cut my dress was or things like that. Like no one's saying, you know, like Danny and Kieran would come out on stage and no one's saying, oh, they wore this shirt or like tight fitting jeans or anything. But as soon as I came out, they were like, oh yeah, she was in this dress, and, you know, just talking about my appearance. And you'd find that men on Twitter and things or Instagram would be like, oh yeah, it's unprofessional for you to have a dress that's that low cut. And I was like, well, actually, it's a normal V-neck dress, but because I have a large chest, it's going to sit lower. it's a dress that if that was on a more athletic, slim or A-cup body type, you wouldn't have an issue with it. I can't control the way I'm built.
Yeah.
So when I put clothes on, they're seen as being, provocative, but it's not. It's because you've sexualized and fetishized my hourglass body type.
Yeah.
But if you put the same clothes on somebody who, just had a more athletic type body, they wouldn't have the same comments. But they're really aggressive with being like, your dress is too low cut. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that doesn't take away. I'm sorry. I must have a turtleneck on to have a master's degree.
Yeah, you
really,
can't be
really
smart
bizarre.
And pretty. You're not allowed to do that. And
you're not allowed. Yeah.
The notion that they're saying it's unprofessional that you would have boobs.
Yeah, that's literally it.
I know, and not unprofessional of them commenting about it.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I do the thing though of that when they started doing it, I just started wearing even lower cut dresses. So by the time we were doing our last show in Brighton, I had a dress that was cut virtually to my diaphragm. I had it pinned close slightly, but I was like, I'm just going to start buying the most ridiculously over the top stuff and coming out on stage in it.
Yeah, turn up in nipple tassels.
Yeah.
I've got a latex nun's outfit that was made for me by William Wilde somewhere. I might just come out on stage in that.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Have a bit of that.
It's crazy, isn't it? That they don't care about your credentials either. That like you've done exactly the same work as people who aren't deemed attractive, but you don't get to say that you're smart or have, worked really hard because you just happen to be hot as well.
I think there's this thing of they expect. There's this parapsychologists get this very specific thing of they think they'll just be kind of older, white, slightly unusual men in like leather coats. And so when I come out, they're like, oh, there was lots of people who'd only heard me. They'd never seen me before. And so they came to these shows and then they came out and they were like, you don't look like what I thought you were going to look like. And I was like, what did you think I was going to look like? Velma from Scooby-Doo? Like, I was like, I wasn't expecting you to have like an evening dress on and heels and like 40s hair or whatever. And I'm like, that's what I look like, buddy. Like, I don't.
Well, if you did come out as Velma from Scooby-Doo, there's actually like a little bit of a niche for that as well. So I don't think that would have helped you.
God. Not even Velma is safe from fetishization of weird men on the internet.
I know. I see hot Velmas all the time, like on these Instagram posts where they put her in like this tiny little dress and,
It's
mad, isn't it?
Yeah, none of us are safe.
No,
none of us are safe. So do you still get angry about that? Does it still like trigger you? Or have you sort of gotten used to it and just sort of roll your eyes and just think, fuck off?
I think it's definitely I've had to be more aggressive because growing up on the internet, like on, right the way from MySpace through, but especially on Tumblr, it's just, you're just constantly being inundated with men sending you, unsolicited dick pics, death threats, fetishization messages. My favorites are when there used to be an anonymous button on Tumblr and they'd forget to tick it, and I would just always publish it because I'd be like, now I know who you are. But you would find out that actually some of the time it's from people that you know as well. Like people will send you anonymous stuff and you're like, I definitely know that that's someone who personally knows me. But I think it's kind of forced me from a really young age to be more aggressive, because it would get to me initially, because I would just feel like no matter what I did, if I didn't behave exactly like how they wanted me to behave, I would get ripped apart. And then after a while, I was like, they're going to fucking do that anyway. These are the same guys that will send you death threats, but they're definitely masturbating over your pictures. Do you know what I mean? So you're like, they're going to do whatever anyway. So you might as well just carry on with what you were doing and ignore it. And now I'm at the point where I just start aggressively calling it out. Like I will screenshot people and put them on blast, because if people... It's fine to obviously just for your own mental health, whatever, just block them, ignore them. But for me, if these guys don't think that what they're doing is wrong, they'll just continue to do it. So I am not above screenshotting and putting people on absolute blast on the internet and be like, you'll not do that again. Because if you don't, that's the thing. You're raised to be... You're expected to be nice, because if you're not nice, you might get murdered. You have to be polite. You have to be calm. You have to be like, oh no, thank you. Or no, oh no, I have a boyfriend. Or, oh, that's funny, thank you. Whatever, and be nice. because otherwise, if he decides to get aggressive, you're going to get murdered, or they're going to come back and wait till you finish work and follow you home.
Yeah.
And so you're raised to be polite, don't make a scene, be flattered, take it as a compliment. I'm not nice. I'm fucking aggressive. And so if I continue to do that and be nice, they'll just like, oh, it's a compliment. And then they'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so I've just started being really, really fucking aggressive. And they instantly go, why are you being like that? Oh my God, you're such a bitch. You're horrible. I was only complimenting you. I'm like, nothing in that was a compliment. Everything you do is a threat. Smile more is a threat. You should do this, or you look nice when you do this, or siding up to you, or being, or coming into like my space is not a compliment. That's you. It's a threat. It's always a threat, and I will respond accordingly. If you put your hand in my face, I will fucking bite you. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're my hero. Yeah. Well, you've got to, haven't you? Like you said, that what being nice doesn't help.
Yeah, they'll murder you anyway.
Nice for what? Yeah, nice for what?
Yeah. Fuck him.
And it comes full circle again. Well, we've got one last question for you.
Sure.
Who's the hottest person you can think of, and who's the worst person you can think of?
So, who's the hottest person? I think my first male crush was probably David Duchovny as Fox Mulder in the X-Files.
Oh my God!
I was watching X-Files last night.
Yeah. What a show!
He's so salty, isn't he?
Yeah, that sexual tension between him and Scully it's just unbearable. It's unbearable.
I think and then I think, as the years gone by, like Mads Mikkelsen is is a really aggressively handsome man.
Gosh, yeah, I watched the film the other night of Mads in it. Fucking love him as well.
Yeah.
I also have a bit of a crush on Tom Hiddleston as well. Just something about him I really like. I also because he's so knowledgeable as a theatrical actor, and I just find him really interesting in his voice and things like that.
Yeah, that's a weird one for me, because I don't really, when I see pictures of him, I don't find him sexually attractive at all. But when I see him animated
and talking and doing things,
I think it's not when he's even in things; it's when he's being interviewed, and he's a bit saucy, isn't he, Tom Hiddleston?
Yeah, he seems very what's the word? He seems like, I quite like him because he seems like he's sort of being himself.
Yeah.
I don't like it, all these actors just putting on this little like show of like, oh, I'm so modest and I'm this and that. And you just think, fuck off, you're lying. But he seems very natural, and like everything he does is kind of very like, I don't know, like not.
It doesn't seem like a facade. It's just normal. And he's just, really
He's just a bloke, isn't he? Just normal, being there, being cheeky, saying things that maybe you shouldn't be saying.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
Giggling, laughing.
Yeah.
I think for women, my oldest female crush is probably just Angelina Jolie. She's just I like women that look like they would cut my throat in my sleep. Angelina Jolie, or like I was saying the other day, even I think my first female crush was the lead singer of Roxette, with the kind of short blonde, like blitzed hair. Even like Charlize Theron, that sort of thing. Women who have the personality of handguns, and I'm like into that. The more you're like scared and turned on. That's the category.
Just the right amount of scared and turned on.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you with that.
Yeah,
like that strong, like female, almost masculine energy.
Yeah. I was trying to think as you were saying that, but no one springs to mind. But yeah, it is that like sort of authoritative, like,
absolute authority, control.
Yeah. I
think of the worst person, like the least, like what is the most unsexy person? Probably, I don't know, Tories.
Just anyone.
anyone in Westminster.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that kind of, I don't know, Boris Johnson, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher. Yeah, there's a running theme there.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably just, I think Yaz in general. Just guys who especially who think that they don't have to have a personality because they're wealthy, that sort of thing. People who have control and power and think that they're James Bond, and you're just like, no. And they're the kind of people who respond really badly to hearing the word no as well, because them having power or connections or money make them think that they can have any woman that they want. And I'm just completely uninterested in any of that.
Yes, it does come as a shock to them, doesn't it? When they're like, I don't understand this, I'm rich.
And you're like, and?
Why aren't you saying yes to me? Everyone else does.
I think talent is the most attractive quality on earth, and talent in anything. You don't have to be a great painter or musician or sportsman. It could just be doing one thing really well and being really passionate about it, and just doing one thing, anything. You could just be a really cracking bin man, and that's still attractive. It doesn't matter what it is. Just being really good at one thing, or being really engrossed or involved, or having something.
Take a bit of pride in it.
Yeah, being talented at one thing, and I'm like, I just think it's the most attractive quality on earth to just meet someone who's just really good at something or talented at something, and I just don't know. There's something about that. Yeah,
completely agree with you with that. Someone that's passionate about something is just like, to hear them talk about what they're passionate about, or to do what they're passionate about, and to watch them doing what they're passionate about is so sexy.
Oh God, I love it when you're talking to someone and you're looking at them and they're really describing how much they love something, and you're just like, get your dick out. Yeah, I love it. There is a second part to that question, isn't there?
Yeah,
Charles. Do you want to deliver it?
Okay, so did you decide, Evelyn, who you're most, if you had to pick one of them, David Duchovny, Tom Hiddleston, Mads, Angelina, Charlize
from Roxette,
or the lead singer from Roxette? You had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Julie. I'd probably pick Angelina Jolie. She's like my oldest crush.
Okay, so you have to have sex with Boris Johnson or Angelina Jolie, but she's freshly dead.
Boris Johnson is alive.
Boris Johnson is alive.
Angelina, sign me up for necrophilia right now.
Yes.
No question.
The thought of going anywhere within 5 feet of Boris Johnson, unless armed with an axe, is really unappealing. Just the thought of even like having to like politely kiss that man literally makes every hair on my body, like the Kill Bill siren that are built into all women, that just starts going off in my head.
Oh God, that actually gave me like goosies.
Yeah, just the thought of like even him looking at you, like his eyes on you, is just repulsive. He's just one of the most repulsive people.
Yeah, he's a monster.
You might find this quite interesting, actually, Evelyn. When we ask people that question, literally all the women always say that they'd rather sleep with the dead person. We're completely in agreement to that. And all the men always say that they would never have sex with someone that was dead. They'd rather have sex with someone they hate.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
But if you could do some research into that.
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, that's likely to be that women, obviously men experience this too, but women, more often so, and especially from, a very young age, are just conditioned to accept bad sex all the time and horrific sex, and just endure things. So they know what's coming with that. They'd much rather be like, no, what the dead is the better option. Whereas for men, sex is not always, but it's generally geared more towards them. They're generally going to have a better time. They're generally going to have per capita less severe or negative instances. Not to say absolutely that they don't, but they're likely to have less. And I think as their growing up, they're expected, that even the worst sex will probably be so the worst sex for a man will probably be having sex with someone that he's not attracted to, and the worst sex for a woman will be like full-blown sexual assault. It's the same thing that when they interviewed people on like Tinder, they were like, what's the worst thing that can happen when you turn up to meet someone? And the guy said, oh, she'll be fat. That's what they said. And the women said, oh, they'll murder me, basically. Like that's the gap in that. Bad sex for a man is like is still a man's worst sex is still probably like a 6 out of 10 for us, because we are conditioned constantly just to expect bad sex our entire lives.
That's fucking mental. Imagine the worst scenario you can think of is that you end up on a date with a fat chick.
Yeah. That's what they said. Oh, she won't look like a profile photo. She'll be really overweight.
That's mental. And then women are like, oh, I'll die. Yeah. And men are like going, yeah, but, at least they weren't bigger than the average or bigger than I expected. And you just think that's fucking insanity, isn't it?
It's absolute insanity. Yeah, absolute insanity.
Yeah. And people think it's all equal between men and women.
I know, men don't have to worry. I would love a little turn in the tides and men start being like, yes, well, she was skinny, but she also was a murderess. I want there to be a
Netflix special called The Size 6 Murderess.
Yeah. Yeah, make men a little bit scared of, Oh,
yeah, I want to get one of those MAGA hats that say Make America Great Again, but just have it say Make Men Afraid Again. I want to make one of those.
Well, we'll take 2, please. All right. Well, I could talk to you forever, Evelyn, honestly. But we'd better stop with the questioning. Yeah. How long have we been on? Can you tell?
About an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, is it an hour and a half? Oh God. Better stop. Better stop. Yeah. Well, it's been lovely. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope we haven't scarred you too much.
No, you're fine.
Just quickly before you go, you've got some things in the pipeline at the moment, haven't you? That you're working on.
Oh yes.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So at the end of the month, performing at the Hay Festival. Hay Festival of Literature and Arts. So we're going to be doing an episode of Uncanny, basically with a crowd. We're going to be doing it live. There's also some new podcast shows coming out in the BBC over the summer, which I can't announce the titles of yet, but there's going to be new podcast stuff. I've got 4 podcast interviews this month. I think you're number 2 at the moment. So there's going to be lots of interviews and new episodes and things. And then the big thing is that on the 27th of May, as well as the Hay Festival, it's on the same day, the first episode of our new TV show comes out. So Spooked Scotland is coming out it's going to air on Channel Relay on television, and then it's going to be streamed on Discovery Channel Plus. And it's me, Gail Porter, Chris Fleming and Ryan O'Neill investigating some of Scotland's most beautiful and haunted locations. We filmed it over September last year to January this year. And the first episode comes out at the end of this month.
I can't wait for that.
I can't wait for that.
I love a ghosty goings on type program.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for it and it looks really exciting.
It was really good fun to film. We went to some of those just insane locations, just places where television crews have never been allowed before, and things like that. And it was intense. There was a lot of stuff going on, and there's a phenomenal crew and team and stuff to work with. It was an absolute ride. So hopefully we get to do more of it.
Do you ever get scared?
Not really, because I grew up with so much like horror, and this is all kind of normal for me, ghost stories and beliefs. And I grew up with a lot of horror video games and things like that, and horror books and stories and film and television. But people, on set and things, people would always say, "Oh, it's really bad if everyone gets frightened." That's how we know.
And that's when we know we need to get out of here.
Yeah, that's the get the fuck out button is me being like, guys.
I think that's almost worse than hanging around with people that are just freaking out all the time. If someone who isn't scared of anything is like, no, we need to get out of here, I'd just die.
I think it's only really happened to me like kind of once on set where I wasn't super scared, but yeah, even I was like, right, I got the kind of electric shock of what the hell is going on.
God.
But I habitually as a person, I'm not really a super jumpy or scared person. I'm the idiot that goes down to the basement in like the horror film. Everyone else is like, we're leaving. I was like, no, I need to know.
Yeah. Get out. You're screaming at the screen, going, fucking get out of there. Don't check. Don't go down there. You know it's down there.
And I'm the first person to be like, I'm going to go downstairs and chat to the ghost.
Oh my God. But do you think that's almost like an insurance policy? Like you go down there and you're like, look, listen, mate, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
I'm here to just live a normal, quiet life. And then the ghost's like, oh, okay, well, this is no point.
You just, go downstairs and be like, listen, lad, I'm on the back shift.
Yeah.
I'm up the motor. You can't be down here rattling chains and shit. Like it's 4 o'clock in the morning, all right? I'm going to end up calling the police. They're going to come to the door. You're going to get lifted. So just simmer down.
And they're ringing their mates going, don't bother, mate. It's fucking worthless here. She's not having any of it.
She's having none of it.
Yeah.
We went to this Scottish bird's house and she came downstairs with a Ouija board and told me to fuck off.
Yeah. When you see these programs and people are like, day one, this happened. And I'm like, what do you mean day one? There'd only be one day. There wouldn't be any more days. I would leave the house. And they're not packing up their kids and getting the fuck out of there. Like, I don't understand. I can't get my head around it, especially when it's so disruptive and like...
Yeah, full-blown poltergeist activity and stuff, you know.
Like you're going down to your kitchen every morning and fucking all your knives are in the ceiling and you're like, come on now, you silly goose.
I'd be like, I'm going to be late for work again.
Yeah. I just don't know how people like carry on like it because I just couldn't. And you just think, move out, mate, live in a tent in front garden. Don't fucking go back in there. Don't want you there.
I would just be annoyed more than anything else. I don't even think it's the fear level. It's the disruption to your everyday life, like not being able to do things like go and take a piss without having, I don't know, like everything in the bathroom turned upside down. I would just get hacked off. I would be like, I am way too tired for this.
I live with a toddler, so that's what my life's like anyway.
Jesus.
Oh, God. Right.
So, yeah, we'll let you go now.
We'll let you go. Yeah, sorry, we've taken us enough of your time.
No, it's all right.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you. And people can follow you on Instagram and Twitter.
They can, yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So go and follow Evelyn Hollow.
Yeah. We'll put all your links and bits and bobs up. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely been one of the more interesting and weirder interviews I've ever done. I've had a great time.
I don't know whether that's a good thing. You're not scared of anything and you're saying we're the weirdest ones.
You guys are the weird ones.
I'm taking it as a compliment.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Bye, girls. Bye.
Bye.